Relentless waves crashed against the rugged shores of Deception Island, a remote and eerie landmass nestled close to the Antarctic Peninsula. It was November 13, 1820, when American sailor Henry Palmer and his men first set foot on this foreboding isle. Palmer, a seasoned sailor, had weathered countless storms and explored many uncharted territories, yet nothing could prepare him for the unsettling events that awaited him and his crew. From the moment they landed, a chilling sense of unease enveloped Palmer. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a sensation that gnawed at his nerves like a relentless predator. Despite the island's desolation, Palmer's instincts screamed that they were not alone. He dismissed the ominous feeling, attributing it to the island's harsh and inhospitable environment. As evening approached, Palmer instructed his men to set up camp just above the high tide line. The men busied themselves with their tasks, setting up tents and preparing for the night. Palmer, ever vigilant, conducted the usual head count in the morning, a routine meant to ensure everyone's safety. It was during this head count that the first signs of trouble emerged. "Norris and Clark are gone!" a voice shouted, breaking the stillness of the morning. Panic gripped Palmer as he rushed to the tent shared by the missing men. The empty tent, with its flaps fluttering in the cold wind, was a stark reminder of their absence. Palmer quickly organized 4 search parties, each armed and ready to scour the island. He led one group himself, heading towards a distant rock outcropping that seemed to beckon with hidden secrets. As they walked along the desolate beach, Palmer and his men discovered human footprints in the sand, mixed with peculiar drag marks. The trail led them to a cave at the base of the rocky outcrop. Palmer, ever the cautious leader, instructed his men to be ready for anything. He could sense something sinister lurking within the cave's depths. Entering the cave, the air grew thick with an overwhelming sense of dread. Palmer's heart pounded in his chest as he gripped his pistol tightly. The cave was dark, save for the faint light filtering in from the entrance. As they ventured deeper, the darkness enveloped them, and Palmer instructed his men to light their candles. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows on the cave walls, heightening their anxiety. A gurgling noise echoed through the cave, followed by raspy breathing that sent shivers down Palmer's spine. The sound seemed to come from just around a sharp corner. Steeling himself, Palmer led the way, pistol at the ready. As he rounded the corner, the sight that met his eyes was beyond comprehension. There on the cold, damp cave floor lay the naked bodies of Norris and Clark. Their skin had been grotesquely removed, leaving their muscles and organs exposed. The sight was horrifying, a macabre tableau of death and suffering. Palmer's stomach churned as he struggled to process the scene before him. One of the men, barely clinging to life, reached out to Palmer with a trembling hand. In his grasp was a brilliant red stone, unlike any Palmer had ever seen. The man's eyes, filled with sheer terror, locked onto Palmer's as he tried to speak, but only managed a gurgling whisper. Palmer took the stone from his hand, feeling its unsettling warmth. "Edward, don't touch it!" Palmer barked as one of his men reached for another stone. "We have no idea what it is." The man recoiled, his face pale with fear. "What happened to them, sir?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I've no idea," Palmer replied, his mind racing. "Something ungodly. We need to get off this island." Palmer ordered his men to wrap the bodies in blankets and carry them back to camp. The sense of dread that had plagued him since their arrival now weighed heavily on his shoulders. He knew they couldn't stay on the island any longer. Whatever had done this was still out there, lurking in the shadows. The following day, as they prepared to leave, a new horror awaited them. The graves of Norris and Clark, hastily dug the day before, were empty. The bodies had vanished without a trace. The men's fear turned to panic as they hurriedly packed their belongings. Palmer's voice, usually calm and commanding, now trembled with urgency. "Men, gather your things. We're leaving now." As they sailed away from Deception Island, Palmer cast a final glance at the shore. The island, shrouded in mist and mystery, seemed to watch them leave. He vowed never to return, hoping that the name he had given it would serve as a warning to others. Deception Island, a place of unimaginable horrors, was best left alone. Years passed, and Deception Island remained shrouded in mystery and fear. Stories of Palmer's harrowing experience circulated among sailors and explorers, serving as a grim warning to those who might consider setting foot on the cursed land. Yet curiosity has a way of luring the brave and the foolish alike. In January 1957, a group of Australian scientists, led by American-born Richard McCrae, arrived on Deception Island, driven by a thirst for discovery that overshadowed the ominous tales of the past. The team's mission was to study the island's geological and biological peculiarities, particularly the active volcano that dominated the landscape. They set up their research station near the volcanic crater, where the heat from the Earth's core made the cold Antarctic climate almost bearable. The first week was routine, with the scientists collecting samples and conducting experiments. It was on the 8th day that the island's sinister nature began to reveal itself. Ian and Ross, two geologists on the team, returned from an excursion with a peculiar find: sediment samples containing an unusual red stone. That night, McCrae awoke to find Ian and Ross standing in their lab, whispering to each other in hushed tones, their backs turned to him. Sleepily dismissing it as enthusiasm for their discovery, McCrae went back to bed. The next morning, Ian and Ross were still in the same spot, their behavior now more unsettling than before. They acknowledged McCrae's greetings with a silent nod and continued their work. This eerie silence persisted throughout the day, drawing concern from the rest of the team. By evening, Ian and Ross had vanished without a trace, their absence noted when they failed to join the others for dinner. The following day, the team split up to search the island. As McCrae combed the desolate beaches, a chilling sense of déjà vu gripped him, recalling the stories of Palmer's missing men. Hours later, the search proved fruitless, and the team returned to the station, anxious and exhausted. That night, McCrae's sleep was shattered by the sounds of frantic cries and the unmistakable terror in the voice of his friend, Max. McCrae grabbed a lantern and ran towards Max's room, the dim light casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The sight that met him in Max's quarters was beyond horrific. Two skinless figures, their muscles exposed and glistening in the flickering light, were devouring Max. Blood smeared the walls and the air was thick with the stench of death. Panicking, McCrae backed away, his mind reeling from the grotesque tableau. He turned and bolted down the hallway, pounding on Peter's door. "Peter, get up! We need to leave now!" McCrae's voice was barely recognizable, strained with fear. Peter, groggy and confused, hesitated until the sight of the skinless men galvanized him into action. As they fled, the monstrosities pursued them with unnerving speed and agility. McCrae led Peter to the mess hall, a plan forming in his frantic mind. The walk-in fridge offered the only possible refuge. They burst into the mess hall, McCrae grabbing a heavy down jacket from a coat rack as they ran. He threw open the fridge door, shoved Peter inside, and followed, slamming the door shut behind them. They barricaded the door with a heavy shelf, the cold seeping through their thin clothing. The creatures scratched and pounded at the door, their inhuman strength threatening to break through. The minutes stretched into agonizing hours as the men huddled together, fighting off the numbing cold and the paralyzing fear. Eventually, the noises outside ceased, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. Exhausted, McCrae and Peter drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by nightmarish visions of their friends and the skinless horrors. They were awakened by the faint sound of voices and the thud of boots on the wooden floor outside the fridge. "Is there anybody here?" a voice called out, tinged with a Norwegian accent. McCrae pounded on the fridge door. "We're in here! Help us!" The door opened, revealing a team of Norwegian scientists from the nearby Livingston Island Research Station. Relief flooded through McCrae as he stumbled out, his legs weak from the cold and fear. He quickly briefed them on the situation, the Norwegians' faces mirroring his disbelief and horror. As they moved through the station, McCrae's worst fears were confirmed. The rooms were stained with blood, and the strange red stones were scattered everywhere, their malevolent glow undiminished. The Norwegians helped McCrae and Peter to their camp, where they relayed their harrowing tale. The Australian government, upon hearing the account, dispatched a special team to investigate. The search for the missing men yielded no bodies, only more questions. The red stones, suspected to be the source of the island's malevolence, were collected and studied, though no concrete conclusions were ever drawn. Years later, McCrae was approached by a man claiming to be part of the investigation team. The man, speaking in hushed tones, revealed that they had encountered inexplicable phenomena on the island, but were sworn to secrecy. His final words to McCrae were a chilling echo of Palmer's own sentiment. Stay away from that island. Deception Island, with its deceptive calm and hidden horrors, remained a place of mystery and dread. The tales of Palmer and McCrae served as stark reminders of the island's dark legacy, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and where the unknown horrors lurked just beyond the shadows. The island's name, etched into the annals of maritime legend, continued to warn those who might dare to uncover its secrets. Some places are best left undisturbed,